We're going to try something a bit new today. We're going to try do some breakout sessions. So we'll see how that goes. It may or may not work, just see how the tech goes. But we've used it in another session that we ran, and it worked really well, just to kind of, just get a little bit more conversation going. So I'm going to try to go through the kind of content really quickly today. So it's less about me talking and just talking, more about you kind of interacting. But just to get us started, so previous weeks we've covered, we started off talking about resilience and how actually that's kind of the foundation for so much of the wellbeing concepts and ideas we're talking about every week. We started off by talking about resilience, and we did a little bit on nutrition, and last week we visited the area of emotional intelligence and how important that is for building resilience. So we thought actually it'd be quite good to kind of almost go back to the beginning, which is, what do we mean by well-being? And there's not a simple answer to that, but we thought it'd be good to sort of start by sharing some kind of high-level ideas and concepts with you from the world of positive psychology, and over the next few weeks kind of delve into those a little bit deeper each week. So as usual, I'm going to attempt to share my screen with you. Just realised I've got a video I was going to share with you, and I haven't tested it, so I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we'll give it a go.
It worked yesterday, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think the video works, and I think it comes across on the Zoom that well, but hopefully it will, So, okay, so as I said, today we are talking about well-being. And for those of you that are familiar with positive psychology, you'll have heard of this PERMA model, but many of you may not have heard of it. And PERMA is a really helpful tool from the world of positive psychology to basically kind of provide a framework for focusing on well-being. And it was developed by the kind of the godfather, the granddaddy, if you like, of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, who kind of really was at the vanguard of this whole branch of psychology. And he kind of came up with the PERMA model, which we're going to go into today. And I'll explain what it's all about in a minute. But we're going to focus today, we're going to start at the end, which is always helpful, but I thought it'd be quite a good place to start. And the A in PERMA stands for achievement, or sometimes accomplishments, depending on which word you prefer to use. So that's what we're going to do today. And really looking into that, we're going to look at the role of growth mindset and how that can help achievement and accomplishments and benefit our overall well-being. But I'm going to start with this little video first of all.
Emma, can you hear the sound on this?
Yes, do you not hear it?
I think is it coming through your headphones?
Yeah.
I think you need to have your headphones undone for us to hear it.
Okay.
I think, or when you're sharing the screen, there's a small box that says share computer sound. And if you click that, then we get to hear it through.
Okay, well, not to worry. So we know for next time. So it's always a good learning. And actually, it's a really good segue to what I'm going to talk about today in terms of growth mindset. So we will share this with you after, so you'll be able to see it. And it's a really short clip anyway, but it was just really explaining the kind of field of positive psychology, and this PERMA model, which is about positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and then accomplishments or achievements. So it's quite a nice segue to something that didn't work today and how I'm coping with that failure, rather than thinking, oh, that makes me look stupid, I'm rubbish. I'm saying, actually, that's a really good learning for next week and I'll get it right next time. And I'm kind of as new to this technology as everybody is. So I'm practicing a good example, a live example of growth mindset here. So what we're going to do really quickly is we're going to look at growth mindset as a kind of a tool for achievement, and just go into that a little bit because it's something that a lot of people are interested in, and it's like one area, one of the facets of this PERMA model. So if you're interested in positive psychology and what it's all about, check out the video afterwards. Okay, so we're going to do a poll here, which Kate is going to launch hopefully. So I think I'll probably stop sharing screen, don't I? Do that. So Katie, you okay to launch the poll? Yeah. So what are your views on the following? How do you look at intelligence? Do you think it's something that you can't change at all? Is it, yeah, you can learn new things, but you can't really change your intelligence that much? I think it's quite fixed. Do you think you can change your intelligence a bit, or do you think you can constantly change your intelligence? So give us a bit of feedback on that, if you depending on where you're coming from with that that poll. Okay, we've got a few answers coming in now, a few people answering. Okay, so kind of views across the board. Okay, so majority kind of a sort of at 3s and 4s, so I think you can change it a bit or substantially change it, but some people are saying actually you can learn new things but you can't really change your intelligence. Okay, excuse me. This is at the heart of what a growth mindset is all about. Many years ago, we thought that you couldn't change your intelligence. It was kind of a fixed state. You know, you had an IQ. You kind of, you could maybe kind of stretch a little bit, but you're sort of almost born with it, and your IQ is your IQ. And actually, latterly, we've discovered this isn't true. It's not the case. We actually can change our intelligence quite a bit. We talked last week about EQ, emotional intelligence. We know we can definitely change that. So some results there. Okay, so just going to reshare my screen again. Go back into that. And I'm going to whiz through this really quickly because I really want to get you guys talking a bit more today. Okay. Can you see that? Hopefully you can.
We can see that, yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, just going to get you thinking about a few characters from history here that we have a view of. So let's think about Winston Churchill. It might surprise you to know that he repeated a year during primary school, and he was placed in the lowest division of the lowest class. So kind of not someone who at school we probably would have thought was going to go on to do the great things that he went on to do. You might have heard of some of these before, actually. Beethoven, obviously an amazing composer, but his teacher called him hopeless, a hopeless composer, and we know that he wrote 5 of his greatest symphonies while he was deaf. So these are all people that are kind of like, going against the grain, if you like. So Leo Tolstoy, again, he dropped out of college or university. He was described as unable and unwilling to learn. And there's the classic one, I'm sure you've heard of this. Einstein was famously described as a teacher as being academically subnormal, which is just crazy. And Walt Disney was told he lacked creative imagination. So just some examples here of people who, had they listened to what they've been told by parents, by academics, would probably not have gone on to do the amazing things they've gone on to do. And they're great examples of people that had what we call a growth mindset. Now, this idea of growth mindset was kind of popularized by Carol Dweck. Brilliant book if you haven't read it. And the idea is that actually our mindset is our intelligence, if you like, or our ability to achieve and develop is malleable, it's changeable, we can develop it, we can grow. People with a fixed mindset tend to think that, well, what's the point? I'll never get any better at that. I am where I am, and it's fixed in time and fixed in state. So the great thing is, as I keep saying every week, is that we can actually you know, mindset absolutely isn't fixed, and we can change. If we have a fixed mindset through no fault of our own, the way we've been taught, the way we've been parented, we can change that. So some people have a more naturally growth mindset, some people don't, but if you don't, that's fine. You can change it. And there's a whole host of reasons why you would want to change it, because it's linked to achievements throughout your life, you know, outside of work, in work, academically, etc. This infographic kind of sums up the traits, if you like, of the two sorts of mindsets here. So people that have more of a fixed mindset, i.e. think that it's fixed and it can't be changed, tend to see challenges as something to be avoided because they don't want to look stupid. You know, I don't want to look silly, I don't want to fail, so I won't try that because I don't want to fail at it. They tend to avoid obstacles for the same reasons. They don't tend to put in as much effort because they think, what's the point? I either can do this or I can't do this. They tend to avoid criticism because, again, it makes them feel like that they look silly, or, you know, they failed at something. And they tend to feel a bit more critical of success of others. And on the flip side, people with the growth mindset look at challenges and embrace them. Say, I can learn from this. You know, well, what can I learn from this challenge? And what can I learn from overcoming an obstacle? So today, rather than me saying, oh, I feel really silly that I got it wrong with the video, I go, actually, I won't do it again next time. And, you know, it's okay. No one's died. It's just a video. Tend to put in more effort because we see that the effort we put in is related to how well we do with something. We actively, people have growth mindset, will actively, you know, look for, you know, feedback, constructive feedback, because it helps to improve them. And rather than avoiding talking about the success of others, they will look for mentors and people they can learn from, and they'll go and contact people and say, hey, what can I learn from you? So that's kind of an example of the difference between the two mindsets. And for some of you, you might be thinking, no, I didn't get the drawing gene as an example of a fixed mindset. I mean, this is certainly one from me. I avoid art because I think I'm rubbish at art. I'm no good at it. I can't draw. I actually come from a family of artists. My uncle's an amazing classical sculptor. My mum paints. My sister's got a first in her degree in photography. And I'm like, no, I didn't get the drawing gene. Some of you might have come across this. It's a website, well, a whole approach to drawing from a lady called Betty Edwards. If you haven't come across this, check it out. And I'm not going to go into like sort of the methodology she uses and whether it's right or wrong, but what she does, you can see here, she believes that everybody can be taught to draw. They might not be, you know, it's a level that we think of as, you know, genius artists, but they can be taught to draw. And you look at these pictures here of drawings before and after they go through her course, by the way, which is free at the moment. She's doing free workshops, or her son's doing free workshops. If you want to learn to draw, get on there. But she shows that actually everybody can be taught to draw. So we all have these kind of like inner voices, don't we, from childhood often, that tell us that we can't do that. I'm no good at that. That's not me. And sometimes we use them as excuses. So I would love to find out, what's your version of I didn't get the drawing gene? I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute. And if you want to pop that in the chat function. Now, Justin, if you've got an example of that, because you've got a real, you know, you are absolutely growth mindset personified, but if you've got anything that you tell yourself, I mean, I absolutely say I can't draw, I'm rubbish at drawing.
Yeah, I think that for me, you know, I grew up knowing that I was definitely creative. I was a musician and an actor and blah, 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 blah. And I always told myself that I didn't do maths. I couldn't do maths. I got a U in my O-level. We did O-levels in Ireland, so I got a U. So I always tell this story, like, this is how bad I was, is not only did I get a U unclassified in my results, I actually finished the exam and thought I'd done really well. I finished my O-level and I was like, man, what was I worried about? That was really easy. I aced it completely, got it wrong. But of course now, for the last 10 years, whatever, been running my own business, I've realized that I can do maths. I can do, you know, accounting stuff. I can use that part of my brain. But I can use it I couldn't use it in the context of education and the academic approach to mathematics, but it's not like I'm completely, whatever it's the term for being not being literate with numbers.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But yeah, so I carried that one around for quite a while. And then it was people pointing out to me saying, well, no, actually, you're quite good at that. You're okay at that. So yeah, that was my little one that I've been carrying around.
Katie, have we got any coming through? The little sort of the the equivalent for I haven't got the drawing gene that we tell ourselves. Great example. So I think one of the things about fixed and growth mindset is it isn't like we always have a fixed or we always have a growth mindset. We can actually flex between the two. So sometimes I'll have a real growth mindset for stuff that I'm interested in, but stuff that I perhaps don't want to really do, I'll go, oh, no, I can't do that. I'm no good at that.
That's me. Anything I don't want to do, then my husband's much better at it than me, so he should do it.
Have we got any examples coming through?
A couple have just come through now, actually. Oh, we've got a few more coming through. So Carissa said drawing gene as well. Katie Morrison, Excel, spreadsheets. Belinda has said she can't dance. She was told as a child and as an adult in public, but I think we definitely need to get Belinda on the dance floor to actually put up the test.
Definitely.
Maths, but it's making homeschooling fun. And then Chris has put that there's an element of physical and intellectual too, not spending enough time on computer games to make sure the control does what I want it to.
Okay, so we've all got these sort of this inner sort of monologue that tells us we're no good at that, we don't do that, and I said a lot often it sort of stems from stuff that we were told as a child and it stays with us. So the psychologists, we love this stuff. So I'm just going to share a little bit more, and then I'm going to get you guys talking and sharing today. As I said, I'm going to try some different things. I'm just going to quickly go through the kind of infamous Carol Dweck experiment, which has been replicated many times, that kind of really brings this to life really quickly. I've put all the detail here. I'm not going to go into loads of detail, but basically a lot of this kind of work stems from looking at the different types of praise given to school kids, so kids aged 10 to 12, doing IQ tests. And essentially there were three groups. There was a group that was given kind of the fixed mindset style praise, so that was called intelligence praise. So things like, wow, that's a really good score, you must be really smart, you must be really clever. So giving you kind of that intelligence praise. There was a second group that were given what we call effort praise. This is more growth mindset praise. So praise like, you must have tried really hard, you've really put an effort into that. And then a third group, which was a control group. And they gave these three sets a series of tasks to do. So the first task, they were all given this IQ test, and after the IQ test, they were all given a score. Regardless of what they actually got, they were all told they got 8 out of 10, and then given the praise, either the intelligence fixed mindset praise, the effort based growth mindset praise, or the kind of neutral control group phase. They were then given another test that was deliberately harder. In the second test, regardless of how well they did, they were all told they scored 5 out of 10. They all kind of did a lot worse than the first test. And again, same thing, each group was given either fixed mindset praise, growth mindset praise, or neutral. And the third test was the same difficulty as the third test. So what happened? So those that were given the fixed mindset type of praise, i.e. you must be really smart, you're really clever, what we found was that after the difficult trial, their confidence dipped, their motivation to carry on dipped, and their performance dipped. Whereas the growth mindset group, their goal is about learning. So the praise is all about them learning and progressing and getting better at something. Their confidence went up, their motivation went up, and their performance went up. And, you know, again, without going into loads of detail, the kids that were given the intelligence praise, i.e. that you must be really smart, the fixed mindset stuff, you know, they started to report these feelings like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this isn't fun anymore. They didn't want to take the game time to play with their family. And after the third activity they were asked to do, their whole kind of approach was designed to avoid failing. They wanted to kind of choose tests after this that would help them to look good rather than help them to get better at something. And when other people asked them how well they did, 40% of them lied. They were scared to tell the truth. They didn't want to look silly. They were worried about looking silly. Whereas the group that had the effort praise, the growth mindset praise, they were told, you must have tried really hard, you must have worked really hard. After the first test, some of their kind of feedback was, I need to work harder. Sorry, after the second test when they did worse, it's, well, I obviously need to work harder. But it was still the same amount of fun, and they still said they wanted to play these games. And after the experiment, we found that this group wanted to select activities to help them get better and learn and achieve and master. And only 1.3% of them lied about how they did in the tests to people afterwards. So it has a massive impact on how we feel, really. So important stuff here. Okay, and this graph shows it beautifully. So your green line is your effort, praise, your growth mindset. They just got better at stuff, and the intelligence praise is the fixed mindset stuff. So this stuff matters. It really makes a difference. And just an example of the ability versus effort praise. So saying something like you didn't make any mistakes, that's a fixed mindset piece of feedback, whereas you must have really paid attention, growth mindset. Saying, I love your painting, or go to the next Picasso, fixed mindset. Your practice is really paying off, growth mindset. You're so clever, that's a real fixed mindset kind of piece of feedback, whereas you learn that really quickly, perhaps it was easy for you, more growth mindset. And the list goes on. You can see some examples here. So the praise that we choose to give to people we work with, people, you know, if we're parents or people we know, really does have an impact on, you know, developing a fixed or growth mindset. So what I want to do is to get you into breakout groups. I'm going to give you like, say 6 minutes on this till past. I would like you to think about how your parents or teachers praised you when you were growing up. Did you have lots of fixed mindset type of praise, or more growth mindset? Were you told you were clever and well done on the A, or was it more kind of, oh, you know, you must be trying really hard, but it's more effort-based praise? So did they tell you were smart, or did they focus on how hard you'd worked? And do you think this has impacted your mindset? And think about how you praise others. So we're just going to kind of see if this works now. We're going to go into breakout groups and just talk about your experience and how you've, you know, reflecting back how you've experienced this. So Katie, are we able to do this then for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
We're not going to kind of share in the group because there's too many of us and we haven't got time, but just to get us thinking really on how we were parented, how we were taught, and how that's really impacted our subsequent mindset. Okay, so Justin, any sort of comments from you before we move on as my co-host?
Yeah, well, in breakout room 2, we.
Oh.
What's happening here?
Oh, that happens to me. My phone rings
Am I
on my.
still on the call? I am still on the call. Beautiful.
That's happened to me a few times. My phone's
probably just proceed without me because I'm not quite sure what to do.
Okay, we'll come back to Justin in a minute. I was just saying that's happened to me a few times when my phone's been plugged into my laptop. I didn't realise it would ring on my laptop. Again, learning stuff all the time at the moment.
We should do that thing that they do in school and make him answer it in front of everybody. And hope it's nothing really embarrassing.
I always have my phone on, well, not always, but I have my phone on silent a lot, and it just kind of vibrates at me. But when it's plugged in, when I'm charging it via my laptop, it rings on my laptop, and that's caught me out a few times. So, Justin, you able to do a bit of feedback from your group at all?
Yes, let's give it a try. Yeah, so clearly, as you said, applying the growth mindset is, I have now learned that even when my phone is completely switched off, my son can still call me by FaceTime. That still comes in over the Wi-Fi. Yeah, we had a short but interesting conversation, and it felt to us that we were, like you said, Emma, that all of us were capable of both. Growth and fixed, and that it felt a little bit like growth mindset had to be learned for us, that probably the one that we'd been grown up and steeped in was more of a fixed mindset approach. But there were some exceptions to that. A couple of people's parents had been quite good on the growth, and so it was a mixed feeling, but certainly we could all identify tendencies in both directions.
Yeah, no, interesting. So let's just, in the interest of time, move it on to look at how you actually, or start to talk about how you can encourage a growth mindset. So we've talked about this on previous Wellbeing lunches, about the fact that, you know, we can change our brains with practice. I think we've talked about this before. This idea of neuroplasticity, that many years ago we thought our brain, when it reached maturity, was fixed and couldn't really change it, and we now know that's absolutely not true. We know taxi drivers, a famous study done by Ellen McGuire in the early 2000s, looked at the brains, MRI scanned the brains of taxi drivers versus non-taxi drivers, because for those of you that maybe aren't UK based, if you're a taxi driver in London, you have to do this thing called the knowledge, which means you have to memorize like thousands of places in London. And what this study found in essence was that taxi drivers had a more developed hippocampus area of their brain, which is associated with memory. And they, you know, there's always with psychology, they're trying to kind of reduce the variables in terms of, well, could it be something else, like people that have, people that have a large hippocampus pass the knowledge. And actually what they did was they looked at things like, they compared them to bus drivers, and basically they found that the experience and practice of developing the memory to do the knowledge changed the shape of the brain, essentially. And we talk about meditation again, keep coming back to this meditation thing, and lots of studies have shown how actively meditating, again, it changes the structure of your brain. So what we find is that one study, for example, found that after an 8-week meditation course, people that had been sticking to the meditation had reduced the kind of size of their amygdala, which is the part of brain that's associated with fight or flight and sort of stress response, and the prefrontal cortex is associated with kind of higher brain functioning around things like decision making and awareness and those sorts of things, was thicker, and the connectivity between the two was weaker. So basically, meditation changed the structure of the brain to enable you to avoid a stress response more than if you hadn't meditated. And there was a correlation between the hours of meditation that had been put in and the kind of the shrinking or the expanding of these parts of the brain. So we can change the brain. I keep talking about this. It's a bit of a constant theme in the sessions. So when it comes to growth mindset, we absolutely can change our brains. We can completely focus on how we can go about taking on a more of a growth mindset approach and creating habits and changing conversations that we have with ourselves. So some of the things we might want to say to ourselves are things like, it's never too late to learn. It's okay to fail. It's what I learned from it. It's important. And that's certainly one that I use with my kids all the time. I say to them, if you're not failing, you're not learning. It's getting comfortable with failure, getting comfortable with appreciating constructive criticism, and understanding that, wherever you start at something, if you're at the beginning of it, you're always going to get better if you keep trying, keep practicing. You're going to master something, and learning from other people's successes and thinking, what can I do differently next time? Telling yourself you want to be a lifelong learner, and the results you get don't define you. That's a really big one for me. It goes back to my fixed mindset. It's like distancing myself. Justin, you talked about this last week, actually, in terms of emotional intelligence, but that kind of labeling things to be able to distance yourself from them psychologically can really help. A starting point of potential, and not looking for other people's approval. That's been a key one for me, because I am absolutely people pleaser, and I hate it if people disapprove of me. So I've had to really work at that one. I'm not there yet. I'll have to be honest. So again, we're going to take a few minutes to go into breakout time. If we take perhaps just do like 4 minutes on this, just really quickly. If we can share a time maybe in the past sort of few weeks when you were faced with a personal challenge or work challenge, and think about if you faced it with a growth or a fixed mindset, and how do you know if it's growth or fixed mindset? And if you're facing it with a fixed mindset, what might you do differently next time? So let's just think about that. Something that's challenged us, and did we take on a fixed or a growth mindset, and how did we know? So
how many minutes for this one?
We do 4 minutes for this. We can
4
put
minutes,
us into,
no problem. We'll be in different groups this time.
That's fine. That's nice.
Mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi.
Okay, we're fast approaching the end of the session. Justin, any thoughts, comments from you? What we've talked about today?
Well, in general, I just to say that I'm reminded of a lovely story about elite ice skaters. And the story goes that I can't remember, I think it must have been an ice skating coach who told this story, but he said that he could always tell who were going to be the best performers really early on, because they were the people who fell over the most. Right, and he said the reason they fell over the most is because they were pushing, and they were failing fast. They were embracing that failure. They were constantly trying to find the point where they would fail. So jump higher, spin faster, because that was the only way that they were able to learn. And so on one hand, you'd look at them in rehearsal and they'd be falling all over the place. But actually what they were doing was getting better by pushing those boundaries, by, as you say, by embracing failure, actually looking for failure, by saying, when I fall over, that I know I've gone too far. That's the only way I'm going to find out. So I like that as a metaphor generally, and we are generally not very good at embracing never mind just coping with failure, but actually embracing it, bringing it on, going,
yeah.
I know I'm growing.
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough. And I think there's lots of situational factors that, sometimes I'm cool with failure, I can cope with it, and other times it really knocks me for six. And it's just going back to all the other strands we've talked about, the emotional awareness, the resilience, all of those things really impact how I then cope with that failure and that bounce back piece we talked about before. But whether I can cope with it and go learning opportunity, whether I go, oh, I'm completely blindsided by it, I'm going to give up, I'm a rubbish person, So I think it's a really good point. So I think I'm not going to go back to the slides now, but I think the last slide was just kind of mindset in a nutshell, growth mindset in a nutshell, was I can't yet. And it's that yet word. I think you just put that on the end of something that really transforms the whole kind of conversation that you're having. So any other thoughts? Anyone got any questions? I want to ask, got any questions coming in today, Katie? Or
there's been a little discussion in the chat. Chris said in reference to one of your previous slides, is there any advice for helping people to really believe some of those phrases, the growth mindset phrases, and they can dismiss them? To which Katie has replied that she's used self-limiting beliefs before to get to the core of these, looking at what motivates them.
You got any thoughts on that? I would imagine you definitely got some thoughts on that, Justin, as a resilience coach. How do we actually start to believe these things we're telling ourselves rather than just pay lip service to them?
Well, I think, so I had a brief chat with Carice in the breakout session, and I was saying, it's back to the old point that ultimately we can only take responsibility for ourselves, and our influence and control of other people is extremely limited. So in a nutshell, just do it yourself. But having said that, there would be a longer conversation.
Yeah.
Had.
I think coaching really helps in my experience, and we've all got self-limiting beliefs and stuff we tell ourselves. And I remember having a session with a coach years ago talking about my glass ceiling. I've kind of even created this whole imagery around this glass ceiling that exists for me about I'm allowed to be good, but don't get too big for your boots, Emma. Don't go too far. Don't be too successful. I've got this whole narrative around it. And I worked with this coach, and he actually had me standing on a table in the middle of this room, kind of actually acting stuff out. And, not saying that would work for everybody, but I think just having someone to kind of really get me to think differently and physically put me in different positions. We talk about perceptual positions in coaching. Stuff like that can really, really help. I mean, we could do a whole session on this, obviously, but I think it's just trying out lots of different approaches. You might be able to fix it on your own. You might need, it might be good to go and speak to a coach to help you work through it. And there's lots of different ways coaches would approach this, but that certainly helped for me, was actually standing on a table and reaching for the stars and going, I can do this. So that's something that helped for me. So cool. Right then. Any other thoughts? We're just pretty much at time now. Anything else coming? Katie, you want to pick up just before we finish?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you as always for joining, everybody. Anything from you, Justin, before we finish?
Well, I like to inject a moment of compassion to the end of these things. And I saw a lovely post from Brené Brown, the wonderful Brené Brown, earlier, and she was talking about, and it feels like it's a nice link to our growth mindset, because the option of doing nothing is also fine. And that ties into your comment about I'm not good at that yet. At the same time, we're not obliged to get better at things and keep trying and keep achieving. Only do it if you want to, and sometimes the logical response to when you hit the wall is actually, you can scale up, or you can look for help, or you can say not yet, or not today. And I think probably that's a nice thing to say to all of us, especially in the current environment, that if anyone's suffering from that, actually, it's fine. Sometimes the courageous thing to do is to step back and say, not today.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. So it's a very wise comment from you at the end of these sessions, Justin. Thanks for sharing that. It's a really great place to end. So really appreciate that. So for those of you that joined today, thank you very much. For those of you that watched this on catch up, hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be back next week. We're going to carry on working our way through the PERMA model. So we'll let you know which element of PERMA we're going to take next. And really hope you can join us next week. And please, you know, tell friends and family about these sessions if you think they're useful. We'd love to get more people involved. Other than that, have a lovely week, and we'll see you next Thursday. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.